Hello everyone, my name is Lakesh and today we're going over how to conjugate irregular verbs in the present tense. I'll also be talking about how to pronounce these verbs as well. As a heads up, this video on irregular verbs is the fourth video and the last video I'll be doing on the present tense. If you haven't watched the previous videos on ER verbs, IR verbs, or RE verbs, I highly recommend that you watch those videos first so that you learn the present tense in a logical order. So prior learning, what this slides mean is that before I teach you what I'm going to teach you in this video, which is how to conjugate irregular verbs, I expect you to know all of these French grammar concepts. If you haven't taken the time to memorize this, or if you haven't just seen these before, I would strongly urge you to pause this video and go find a relevant video for each of those grammar concepts. So now let's get started. An irregular verb in French, which is really important, is avoir, which means to have. If you conjugate avoir in the present tense in the je form, what this basically means is I have. So j'ai is I have. If you conjugate avoir in the tu form, you get tu as, which is you have. If we conjugate avoir in the il form, you get elle a, which is she has. In the nous form, nous avons, which is we have, vous avez, which is y'all have, and elles ont, which is they have. And it's very easy to mispronounce these verbs. For example, what a lot of beginners try and do is that they try to pronounce every letter explicitly. So when I started out in French, I used to say stuff like tu as, because I wanted to pronounce the A and the S. However, what you need to realize is that in French, you don't pronounce every single letter of the word. You pronounce only some of them. For example, here, tu as, I'm only really saying the A explicitly. You can't really hear an S. Avant, it's all intermingled there. Avec and ils ont. As you see, when I pronounce ils ont, I'm not pronouncing the T. A less experienced person in French might say something like ils ont. An example sentence for conjugating avoir in the present tense is, if you want to say I have black hair in French, I have, the French verb for to have is avoir, and this is in the present tense, so that means we have to conjugate avoir in the present tense. Avoir in the present tense in the je form is j'ai, and then black hair is les cheveux noirs. So être. Être means to be. So if you conjugate être in the present tense in the je form, it's je suis, which means I am. Tu es is you are. Elle est is she is. Nous sommes is we are. Vous êtes is y'all are. And elles sont is they are. As you noticed here, I was not trying to pronounce every single letter. So I didn't say je suis. I didn't really pronounce the S at the end. I didn't say tu es. I just said tu es, where I just really pronounced the E. When I began French, I used to say elle est all the time. However, it's just elle est. Nous sommes, don't pronounce the S at the end, unless if there's a vowel after it. For example, nous sommes allés. We'll talk about that later in the past tense. Vous êtes, I didn't pronounce the S there, as you can see. Ils sont, I didn't pronounce the T there. So what you really need to do is just practice saying these out loud over and over again, just to make sure that you don't say those extra letters at the end. Because if you're learning French for an exam, or you just want to talk to French people, pronouncing these letters at the end, for example, saying elle est, is a big giveaway that you're not great in French. So if you want to say a sentence in French, such as she is sick, she is the verb to be, and to be in French is être, and she is in the present tense, so that means you need to conjugate être in the present tense in the elle form, which is elle est, and malade is the word for sick. Okay, another very important verb is aller, which means to go. Je vais is I go. Tu vas is you go. Elle va is she goes. Nous allons is we go. Vous allez is y'all go. And elles vont is they go. You're not going to pronounce the last letter. So je vais, I didn't really pronounce the IS there. Tu vas, you can't really hear an S. And nous allons, can't really hear the S. Vous allez, ils vont, you don't really hear the T in ils vont when I pronounce it. So there again, the same pronunciation rules kind of apply here. This is a really important verb for learning near future, as a heads up, so it's really important that you learn this. So we are going to the cinema today. We are going is the verb to go in English, and the verb to go in French is aller. So that means we need to conjugate aller in the present tense in the nous form, which is nous allons. And then to the cinema today is au cinéma je. Faire. Faire is to do in French. So je fais is I do, tu fais is you do, elle fait is she does, nous faisons is we do. So here's an example sentence. So I do is in the present tense, obviously, and I do is a verb to do in English, which is the verb faire. So if you want to say this in French, the two words I do, you need to conjugate faire in the present tense for the je form, which is je fais. And then mes devoirs is my homework. Devant is a lovely proposition. And la télévision. Vouloir is the verb to want. So je veux means I want, tu veux means you want, elle veut means she wants, and so on. I think you guys will get the gist by now. If you want to say I want to be your friend, I want is in the present tense, and it's talking about the verb vouloir, obviously. So you're gonna need the present tense of vouloir in the je form, which is je, veux, and then if you're translating to be into French, être is the verb for to be. And ton ami. And also another important grammatical point to point out is that usually, in most cases, whenever you have two verbs next to each other, the second verb will be in its infinitive form. So if you want to say something like, I like to play tennis, you'll say j'aime, as you're conjugating aimer in the present tense, it's an ER verb, and then jouer, you write out the whole infinitive. So j'aime jouer. J apostrophe A-I-M-E space J-O-U-E-R. This is also a very crucial verb. Pouvoir has really similar conjugations to vouloir. For example, vouloir, you had V-E-U-X, V-E-U-X, V-E-U-T. The way I learned is that this is the exact same. However, you just have P. Pouvoir is the verb to be able to. What this basically means is that je peux I'm able to, or je peux I can. They basically mean the same thing. So if you want to say we can fly, we can is talking about the verb pouvoir, obviously. So you're going to say nous pouvons. And then as I just said, if you have two verbs next to each other, in most cases, the second verb is going to be an infinitive. And the infinitive for to fly is voler. So conjugating voir in the present tense, here are the conjugations. Je vois is I see, tu vois is you see, elle voit is she sees, nous voyons is we see, vous voyez is y'all see, ils voient is they see. So I see that you have a lot of homework. Je vois is conjugating voir in the present tense in je form. Que is that. That's a very important thing to know. Tu as, you have, is tu as beaucoup de devoirs. So je vois que tu as beaucoup de devoirs. Also, another thing to learn is that my French teacher for the last 2 years has went on a campaign to tell her students never to write beaucoup de. It's always beaucoup de. Also, as I was talking about earlier, que is very important here. If you ever want to say that in French, you always have to say que. Sometimes in English you take away that. So if I came up to you and said, I see you have a lot of homework, that is grammatically fine in English. However, in French, you can never leave out that. You always have to have that in the sentence. So you always have to be translating this sentence strictly. Je vois que. You can't just say je vois tu as beaucoup de devoirs. It doesn't work like that. Venir in the present tense. Venir is the verb to come. So je viens, tu viens, elle vient, nous venons, vous venez, elles viennent. Venir de. This is a very interesting grammatical point. Very sophisticated. So if you want to say stuff like, I've just arrived here, you conjugate venir in the personal pronoun we're talking about. So here we're talking about I. So venir, present tense in the je form is je viens. And then you have the de, and then you have the infinitive. So I just arrived here. Also, another pronunciation point to point out is that you never pronounce the ENT here. You never pronounce it. So you wouldn't say vient. You always say vient. Another crucial irregular verb is savoir, which is to know. So je sais, tu sais, elle sait, nous savons, vous savez, ils savent. If you want to say he knows a lot, he knows is the present tense of savoir in the il form, which is going to be il sait beaucoup. Devoir is actually a really commonly used irregular. So je dois means I have to or I must. Tu dois means you have to. Elle doit means she has to. You get the gist. So I have to go to school. What you need to notice here is that we're not conjugating avoir here. We're not saying I have something. Here we're talking about you having to do something, which requires devoir. Devoir in the present tense for je is je dois. And then here we have another verb here, which is to go. As I just said, if you have two verbs next to each other, the second verb must mostly always be in the infinitive. So boire is to drink. Je bois, tu bois, elle boit. Get it? He drinks water every day. So you conjugate boire in the present tense in the il form, so it's il boit de l'air tous les jours. Prendre, je prends, tu prends, elle prend. It basically means I take, you take, she takes. So they take a class of English every day. Ils prennent une classe d'anglais tous les mercredis. Make sure you don't pronounce the E and T. I'll now perform a rap on memorizing all of these irregular conjugations. What will happen is that a French verb will appear on the screen, and I'll say all the conjugations for it. Let's do this. J'ai, toi, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont. Je suis, tu es, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Je vais, tu vas, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. Je fais, tu fais, elle fait, nous faisons, vous faisiez, ils font. Je veux, tu vous, elle vous, nous voulons, vous voulez, ils voulent. Je peux, tu peux, elle peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, ils peuvent. Je vois, tu vois, elle voit, nous voyons, vous voyez, ils voient. Je viens, tu viens, elle vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils viennent. Je sais, tu sais, elle sait, nous savons, vous savez, ils savent. Je dois, tu dois, elle doit, nous devons, vous devez, ils doivent. Je prends, tu prends, elle prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent. I hope you have fun learning these irregulars, and see you next time.